Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm having lots of fun with this brand new catalog and all the products that are in it. Not to mention the accessories and the colors, but there's amazing stamp sets as well. And I'm focusing on a brand new bundle today called Label Me Pretty. The stamp set has a matching punch and I'm using it to create a really fun vintage feel to this birthday card. I know it's going to be kind of hard to see where you're at because the colors are very pale, but I'm going to go over to the stamp table and show you how to put it together. Remember that you'll be able to find all the cutting dimensions as well as pictures and supplies over on my blog. If you're here from YouTube, you can access it very easily by clicking the I button here at the top of the screen and it'll take you right to that blog post, making it easy for you to find. While you're there, check out my online classes tab because I've got fun ways for you to stamp with me at home. Let's get over to the stamp table and let's get started. Now you can see that really pretty pink pirouette. Very light pastel color, which makes it difficult to see up front when I was doing the intro for this video. But I want to show you how I'm using a large stamp for the background, and then we'll talk about the focal for this new stamp set called Label Me Pretty. Remember, you can find all the cutting dimensions for today's project over on my blog. The link is right inside the information button here at the top if you're here from YouTube. I've got my paper trimmer out because whenever I cut my paper the long way, this is 4 1/4 by 11, I like to actually score it versus fold it to create a really nice crisp line so that the cardstock doesn't crack. This is really, really long. 5 1/2 is going to be the halfway point. Got it right up here against my ledge. My paper trimmer has a scoring blade and the Stampin' Up! Trimmer also has a cutting blade. That's the dark one. I'm just moving that off to the side down here at the bottom and lining it up. I'm just going to score. So now that I've got my cardstock all ready to go. Even though I have already created that score line, I do like to use my bone folder for that nice crisp crease here on the card. So this is the base where we're going to be doing our stamping, and I'm using pink pirouette. And I'm also going to be using the stamp called Happy Birthday from Stylized Birthday. It's a single stamp and it only comes wood mount. Those of you that like clear and photopolymer are thinking, oh no, boo hiss, no way. It's awesome and I really, really like it. And for this card, like I used on the background, you're going to find it very easy to use because it doesn't have to be perfect. So I've got my pink pirouette ink pad and I'm going to ink and tap. And I'm going to actually do this on an angle. So I'm going to start here at the top and I'm going to press nice and firmly. It's a good size stamp. And then I'm going to ink. Now I know you're saying, how do you know where you're going? Well, you know what? I really don't, but I'm not going to sweat it. So I'm going to stamp here off to the side and press. And I'm going to move it over. And if it's not perfect, it's okay. I'm going to press. And I'm going to fill one more in over here, see if I get a little bit. And I'm going to do this all the way across the paper. And again, even if you overlap, it's all right. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to fill in a little bit. And if some images are higher or lower, that's fine too. This script birthday is really forgiving because the letters are really whimsical. And so I've got one more there. So now we have the base of our card. I'm going to set that aside. And I'm going to bring in a piece of Whisper White cardstock. I'm going to be using the basic gray ink for this, and I have labeled the image that says Happy Birthday. I want to show you this stamp set. Boy, is it fun. There's lots of fun things. And look, I love to bake, so this is going to be great if I'm baking cookies for someone, or I'm bringing over some homemade soup for a friend for Get Well. Lots of other fun things that can be used individually as well. But the best news is they all fit in a coordinating punch, which I'll show you in just a second. Now I chose basic gray versus basic black because I wanted to lend credence to that pastel pink. So I'm just inking that up and I'm stamping that here. And you can see that the lines are very, very fine, very intricate, very feminine. As with the black archival ink as well as the gray, you're going to want to give it a few minutes to dry so that you don't smear it because we are going to do a little bit of coloring in. They are deeply pigmented, so I'm just going to give that a couple seconds to dry. And while it's doing, I'm going to go over back to my pink pirouette ink pad. And I've chosen to color in some of the details using a blender pen. Obviously, a marker will work well, or watercolor pencils, whatever your preference. So to get ink inside the well, we're going to flip this over and we're going to squeeze it. And that's going to push residual ink from here to here, and you're going to use the blender pen to pick up color from here. Okay, I think you can see better now. I don't know if you can see the ink pad, but it's there. Blender pens, the tips do get stained with usage over time. The most important thing is just make sure that it's clean before you get started. I make a good habit of never putting it away while it's dirty, just to make sure that I'm not carrying one color over to another. And again, I'm trying to get everything in the camera angle, so bear with me here. All right, so I'm picking up some color from here with my blender pen. You don't ever want to put your blender pen in the pad. There's a chemical in this pen that will not only absorb the ink, it'll leave a little bit of a white spot, which will make it resistant when you're actually stamping. So I'm actually going to pick that up here, and then I'm going to come into these little areas, and I'm just going to whoosh around a color. Now, because the details of this are small, I'm not worried too much about shading. I'm actually more interested in filling. And you can see that I'm not being really careful at all about where I'm placing it because the images are so small, which is another reason why this is kind of fun to use with a blender pen versus a marker. Although the Stampin' Up! Markers do have dual tips, one side is for writing and the other side is a brush for coloring, I do find that sometimes it's difficult to get into these little tiny areas with the marker. So I like to use my blender pen for this. There's also an aqua painter, and I absolutely love that if I'm creating washes and backgrounds or I'm coloring in larger areas. So I'm going to color those in here. I think I'm just about done. I think the rest might be green. All right, so we're just going to give this a little bit of definition here. Go back over some of this and fill that one up. Okay, so now I'm going to change colors. So to do so, you have to clean off the blender pen. So I'm going to take it on my grid paper and I'm going to roll it and turn it. You're going to see that I'm not doing this. That will split the tip of the blender pen over time, making it very difficult to get into those detailed areas. Once the pen runs clean, like it is here, you're good to go change colors. So I'm going to close this up. And now we're going to use the lemon lime twist. If you watched my video last week, you heard me say that this was the color I swore I was going to hate. And guess what? Boy, was I wrong. I really, really, really like it. So I'm picking this up, and now I'm going to fill in some areas where I know there's some greenery. So I'm going to just kind of fill this in. And again, just like the flowers, I'm not going to be really crazy to make sure that it's filled in perfectly, because I'm going to add a little definition to this with another color. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to change colors one more time. So I'm rolling this on my grid paper, and you're going to see how I'm preserving that tip by doing it almost horizontally until it runs clear. So I'm going to close this one up, and now you're not going to believe, but I'm going to try Tranquil Tide. This is a new in color. I'm squeezing it as well to get residual ink inside the lid. Now I know you're thinking, that is too dark. It is very dark and it's very concentrated, so you're going to want to be careful. So I'm going to take a little bit and I'm actually going to kind of water it down from the chemical in the pen so it's very, very light. And I'm just going to go over this, but do you see what's happening? I'm getting some light and some dark areas for some contrast, some depth to my project. If you're like me and you love to color, you'll love this little bit of a fussiness to this. And it just creates a little bit of visual interest, so it's just not all one color. So I'm just going to go sporadically and just decide where I want that. And again, I don't have to do it everywhere. It's just to get a little bit of definition to the project. And again, before I put my blender pen away, I'm going to make sure that it's good and clean. Put your cap on. Blender pens should be stored this way horizontally. You don't want to store them up and down, because if you do, the chemical that's in the barrel will all drain to one side, leaving the other side empty. So you want to leave that flat. Now here comes that punch I told you about. Pretty label, and it matches all the images that are in that stamp set I showed you. So we're going to line that up here. Just center it the very best that you can. And punch. I'm going to have some fun tips with this punch coming up in my quick tip videos. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, you'll want to make sure you do that so you don't miss any of those tip videos that I publish every Thursday. And you're going to see there's a die missing here already because I've pulled it out. This is the Stitched Shapes framelits, and there's ovals, circles, and there's also squares all in one package. I have to tell you, I think of all my framelits, I use these the most. I love that stitched look to give it that little bit of a handmade look to all my cards. Look, I fussied and made all those little stitch marks, but I didn't. All right, so I'm going to bring in the big shot, and then we're going to die cut an oval to add to our card. Whenever I'm using framelits, I love to use my magnetic platform, and that's because it helps create a contact between the framelit and the paper to hold it in place. I've got a clear mat on the bottom to protect that platform, and then here comes my pink pirouette cardstock where I'm going to die cut that stitched oval. Another clear mat over the top, and then I'm going to crank it through. I just want to make sure to tell you, it die cuts on the inside circumference, so you can get pretty close to the edge and maximize your scraps. It's just another great tip for you. I'm going to crank that through. It's not uncommon for big shots to make all kinds of horrible cracking and peeling noises. That's all normal because it's die cutting. And because of those stitch marks, you can see that it's going to pop right out. Isn't that pretty? Love that. That's going to look beautiful on the front of our card. Believe it or not, we're almost done. Let's do some assembly. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back. These are double-sided foam pieces that are actually going to make my project look a little bit more professional. I'm going to be a little more generous than I normally am. I'm going to put one in each of those points here. And I'm going to mount that here. I always take consideration of it going through the postage meter when I mail my cards, and that's going to go right here in the middle of the stitched oval. But I want to lead credence to that feminine image, so I decided to take a doily, and we're going to scrunch it up across the bottom. Now, the best way to do this is to add adhesive right to that arc of where you're going to want the doily, so it's nice and sticky. And if you overthink this, you're going to get really frustrated, so don't. All I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of gauge where I want it to start. I'm going to start about here, and then I'm going to scrunch. And there's nothing neat about this. I'm talking nothing neat. So the more you scrunch, the more pleats you're going to have, the better it's going to look. And you're probably thinking, oh, I don't like that. And that's okay. Remember what we said. It's not wrong if it's yours. So there we go. I've got a little bit of scrunching going on. I'm going to turn it over from the back, and I'm going to press. So anything I'm not using is going to stick there. One thing you can't do is peel it and do it over. So there we go. I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to add dimensionals to the back. So I'm going to take one here and one here. I'm going to anchor this down a little bit, and I'm going to do another one here and take off that paper backing. And then we're going to adhere this to the corner of our card. All right, and that's going to be down here at the bottom. I did mine in the bottom right corner. All right, but it's missing something, right? And if you've watched my videos before, you know it's missing bling. I'm a big fan of bling. So I'm going to take one of the medium-sized pearls with my paper piercing tool. They already have glue dots on the back, makes it really easy to use. And I'm going to take a smaller one as well. I'm picking that up as two, and I'm going to add one here. Love that they're already sticky because it sure makes my job a lot easier. And then I'm going to try to form a triangle. So do you see how they're going here? And I'm going to do another one, oh, probably up here. Just to add a little interest so your eye carries your way down here to the bottom of the card. Simple, but it's so elegant, isn't it? All right, so here's the one we've made today. Here's the one I made before you joined me. Guaranteed none of these are ever going to look the same. So don't get crazy when you're making your cards. Have a little self-forgiveness. It's handmade, right? Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. Remember, head over to my blog for pictures and cutting dimensions and the supplies. I look forward to seeing you next time, everyone. Have a great day.